It's Friday, May 22nd, 2026, and in the last 72 hours, two things happened that should be on every front page in the world, but barely made it past the first block of a news ticker. First, 5 days ago, on Sunday, May 17th, a drone struck the Barakah nuclear energy plant in Abu Dhabi. Not a military target, not a fuel depot, a nuclear power plant, the Arab world's first and only, a $20 billion facility that provides 25% of the UAE's electricity. The IAEA's chief called it a grave concern. The UAE called it a treacherous terrorist attack, and the world held its breath while emergency diesel generators kicked in to keep Unit 3 running. Second, and this is the part that's been almost completely buried, just 3 days later on May 20th, Iran's brand new shadow regulatory agency, the Persian Gulf Strait Authority, posted exact GPS coordinates on X. Not a threat, not a statement, exact coordinates, declaring that an entire section of the Strait of Hormuz, from Mobarak on the Iranian coast, all the way to the south of Fujairah on the UAE coast, is now officially under Iranian management and permit control. Iran didn't just try to close the Strait of Hormuz. They declared it Iranian territory on a social media post. And then the US Navy did something massive to back them off. So let's build the full picture, because if you only got this from mainstream news, you got maybe 10% of what's actually happening. Let's start with Barakah, because without understanding what happened there, you don't understand why Iran posted those coordinates 3 days later. The Barakah nuclear energy plant is located in Abu Dhabi's Al Dhafra region, about 225 kilometers west of the capital. Built with South Korean technology at a cost of $20 billion, it houses 4 pressurized water reactors, each capable of producing 1,400 megawatts. Combined, they generate 40 terawatt-hours of electricity per year. That's 25% of the UAE's entire power grid. According to the IAEA, on May 17th, a drone, one of 3 that entered UAE airspace from the western border, slipped past air defenses and struck an electrical generator located just outside the inner perimeter. Fire broke out. One reactor, Unit 3, was temporarily switched to emergency diesel generators. IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi came out publicly and said, "Military activity that threatens nuclear safety is unacceptable. No radiation was released. No one was injured. All 4 reactors are operating normally." But that's almost beside the point. The point is, someone just hit a nuclear power plant during a ceasefire, in front of the entire world. That kind of move doesn't happen in isolation. That was a message, and the message came with coordinates published 3 days later. On May 20th, 2026, just published in the last 48 hours, Iran's Persian Gulf Strait Authority posted its official supervision zone on X with military-grade specificity. The zone runs east to west, from the line connecting Mobarak in Iran to the south of Fujairah in the UAE, across to the line connecting the end of Keshem Island in Iran to al-Qaywain in the UAE. That is the entire Strait of Hormuz. Every ship, every tanker, every LNG carrier, every container vessel, all of them now required, according to Tehran, to submit a vessel information declaration to info@pgsa.ir. Ownership details, insurance documents, crew manifests, cargo type, intended routing, all of it. And only after the PGSA approves your filing and you pay a fee, reportedly up to $2 million per transit, accepted in Chinese yuan or Bitcoin, to IRGC-linked digital wallets specifically to bypass Western sanctions, do you get a permit to use international waters. Let that sink in. A choke point through which 20% of the world's seaborne oil trade flowed, 20 million barrels per day before this conflict, is now being run like an Iranian toll booth. The U.S. Office of Foreign Assets Control immediately issued an advisory warning that any payment to the PGSA exposes both U.S. and non-U.S. persons to sanctions risk. It doesn't matter if you pay in cash, crypto, or in-kind transfers. You pay Iran, you get sanctioned. Israel-linked vessels? Banned outright. U.S.-affiliated ships? Severe restrictions. This isn't a threat. It's an institution Iran is building right now in real time as a permanent feature of whatever deal eventually gets negotiated. Here's where the story gets genuinely historic. When Iran shut the strait following the February 28th Operation Epic Fury strikes, when CENTCOM reported 17 Iranian ships destroyed in 3 days, and, in Admiral Brad Cooper's own words, there's not a single Iranian ship underway in the Arabian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, or Gulf of Oman, Iran pivoted to economic warfare. They couldn't fight the US Navy conventionally, so they decided to weaponize geography instead. Shipping through Hormuz collapsed by 95%. Oil surged past $100 per barrel. Up to 1,000 vessels carrying 20,000 sailors sat at anchor waiting. Iran started shooting. UK maritime trade operations confirmed over a dozen ships struck by projectiles. A Thai cargo vessel was hit, 3 crew members missing. 2 container ships, the Epaminondas and the MSC Francesca, were seized and dragged into Iranian waters on April 22nd. So on April 13th, after the Islamabad peace talks collapsed, the United States launched a counter-blockade. Not of the strait, that's mined, it's shallow and it's dangerous. Of Iran itself, every single Iranian port on the entire Persian Gulf coastline. The CENTCOM statement from day one is the one to bookmark. More than 10,000 US sailors, Marines, and airmen. Over a dozen warships, dozens of combat aircraft, and in the first 24 hours, not one ship entered or exited an Iranian port. 0. In 24 hours, 6 merchant ships were turned back. By late April, 42 vessels redirected. By May 18th, confirmed by CENTCOM on their official X account, 85 commercial vessels turned around. The force had grown to 200 aircraft and 20 warships backed by 15,000 personnel. And the economic damage to Iran? According to official U.S. sources cited directly in the Congressional Research Service report, $500 million per day, every single day. The blockade is not a pinch, it is a financial hemorrhage. Here's the part that the mainstream outlets are completely missing. The traditional image of a naval blockade, a row of battleships sitting off a coast, is obsolete. What the U.S. Navy is running right now is a distributed sensor-to-shooter network. Autonomous high-altitude drones and satellite imagery track the hull signatures of Iran's shadow fleet, tankers that turn off their automatic identification system transponders and go dark. When an unauthorized tanker tries to slip out of Karg Island, the U.S. doesn't always engage kinetically. They execute electronic spoofing to confuse navigation systems. They conduct cyber interdiction of port logistics. And when a physical intercept is needed, a guided missile destroyer like the USS Rafael Peralta is already in position in the Gulf of Oman, outside the mined zone, waiting for the vessel to clear the strait. The net isn't at Hormuz. As one U.S. official told the Washington Post, "Our net is the Gulf of Oman." By the time a shadow tanker has successfully run the Iranian mine threat and the IRGC gunboat gauntlet through the strait, a U.S. warship is already waiting on the other side. And the knock-on effect of this is the real weapon. Maritime insurance providers have stripped all war risk coverage for ships docking in Iranian ports. Without insurance, no legitimate international ship owner will send a vessel. China, Tehran's biggest energy customer, is delaying and canceling crude oil orders because the freight costs and legal exposure from OFAC sanctions have become unsurvivable. The U.S. Navy has turned Iran's geography from a weapon into a prison without firing a shot at the strait itself. Step back and look at the full board. Iran attacked a nuclear power plant during a ceasefire, then 3 days later published the coordinates of their declared sovereignty zone over Hormuz. They're not posturing. They're building permanent institutional infrastructure, the PGSA, that they intend to walk into any peace negotiation and present as a fact on the ground. But here's what they didn't account for. The U.S. counter-blockade is costing Iran $500 million a day. Their shadow fleet can't find buyers. Their ports are economically frozen. Their IRGC fast attack boats, which were their asymmetric trump card, are now the primary target of A-10 Warthogs, AH-64 Apaches, and AC-130J gunships that have been confirmed in theater. Iran thought it had a nuclear weapon in the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. Navy turned the strait into Iran's cage, and every day that cage stays locked, the regime inside it gets a little weaker. The question isn't whether Iran can survive the strait being closed. The question is whether the regime survives being economically strangled inside it. What do you think happens next? Does the PGSA become a permanent feature of a negotiated deal? Does the ceasefire hold? Does Project Freedom actually reopen the strait for global commerce? Drop your analysis in the comments. Follow me on X and Instagram. I'm posting every day as this develops. This is your analyst, signing off.